I think this is a great move, both for Cole Ragans and for the Royals, for multiple reasons. One, happy for Cole. He has cost certainty. He knows what he's going to go in and make. He doesn't have to worry about going to an arbitration hearing or negotiating with the team in the offseason, trying to get the most money as they try and bring the number down and that whole cat and mouse game. He doesn't have to worry about that. He now knows I have my money for the next 3 years and I'm going to go ball out and I'm going to go and try and get that $8 million, for 2027 and go win the Cy Young. And it takes some pressure off of him.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
One Royal Way back at it here on Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Joel Penfield. Thank you so much for making this part of your day whenever you're listening or watching this episode of the podcast. I hope that you're staying warm and staying as safe as you can with all this cold weather and the snow that came in this week. If you're in the Midwest, Kansas City area, I left my house once today. It was terrible. Trying not to do that for the next couple of days because it's so cold. I wish I was down in Surprise, Arizona, where the Royals are at. Spring training in full swing. Got some stuff to talk about. JJ Picollo, Matt Quatroro had some club options picked up, and JJ's extended. We'll talk about that. Cole Ragans' contract. And then we're going to talk about some of the offense. I want to clean up some of the things I said last week. Just amend some things that I said last week. And then thank you so much to people that went on Twitter and on the KCSN Discord for some mailbag questions. We'll do that at the end here. Before we get into that, thank you to Emprise Bank, our partners in Possible here at KC Sports Network and on One Royal Way, huge supporters of this show, and we can't thank them enough for that. Off the top here, JJ Picollo, it was announced yesterday on Monday, the 17th, that he is reached an extension with the organization through 2030 with a club option for 2031. In addition to that, Matt Quatroro's club option was picked up for 2026. So Q will be here for the next 2 seasons, it appears. Both of these are well-deserved. To start with JJ, I mean, since he's taken over, we've seen a complete organizational flip from the previous regime with Dayton Moore and what we had seen for the half decade after the World Series and after the run with that core that ended in 2017. It was pretty much a disaster. With no real direction or end in sight, JJ takes over, and we saw that. And I know that the 2023 season was terrible, objectively, losing 106 games, but there was a direction to where they were trying to head, and that could be seen beyond the box score. 2024 is the shining example of that process. Going from 56 wins to 86, making the playoffs and getting to the second round, with his moves, both trade and free agency, having a massive impact on the team going from where they were in 23 to where they ended up in 2024, and where we hope that they continue to ascend in 2025 and beyond. I think JJ does a great job leading this organization by example, and he is collaborative in the way that he handles his business. I think it is a perfect storm for him right now to be the leader that this organization needs. And I'm excited for what he's going to continue to do, because I think he's going to continue to be transactional. He's going to continue to be aggressive. And I know that some of the free agent stuff they set out to do, it didn't come to fruition. I don't think it was on the fault of the organization or a lack of trying. It's just kind of the way it worked out. I'll talk about a little bit of that in a bit, but very happy that JJ's sticking around. This is a well-deserved extension for him. Matt Quatroro, I like him. I think he is a very solid manager, exactly what this team needs. He has that Ned Yost quality of being able to relate to the locker room and everybody, in that clubhouse and in the dugout, 1 through 26, to kind of just lead as a culture builder type. And I do think he is very baseball savvy, and I think he handles in-game management very well and has, learned on the job, and I thought he did a very good job last year. Look, the roster was flawed last year, and they still managed to win a lot of games, despite some bullpen struggles, despite bottom of the lineup and lack of depth or talent beyond a handful of guys for most of that season. I feel like he navigated it very well, and they take to his message, where, just we can only focus on what we have today. Yesterday's in the past. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Let's just focus on what we have today, and we'll move on from there. And the team handles that, and they take to that message, and they believe in it. And I believe that's a big reason why they were able to make the jump that they did from 23 to 24. He had a massive impact on that. So this is, another 2 years, and I think he's going to be the manager for the long haul here. I say what you want about him, Monday morning quarterback, some of his decisions if you want, but I'm not going to do that. I think he's done a masterful job with this team, and I look forward to seeing how he continues to progress as the manager of this team in 25, now his third year as the manager of this team. One of the last notes, and this came out on Friday evening, as I was about to put my kids down for bed, it was announced that Cole Ragans signed a 3-year extension for the Royals worth $13 million, $1 million salary this year in 2025, 4.5 in 2026, 7.5 in 2027. If he wins the Cy Young any of the next 3 seasons, that salary goes up to $8 million for that 2027 season. Now, as I talked about on Twitter, and other people commented on it, I think the term extension here is generous. It's not like it is poor wording or not what it is, but this is not eating up new years. He is still under team control, I believe through 2029. So this is not this doesn't eat up any of his free agent years. This particular 3-year deal takes up his last pre-arbitration year this year and his first 2 arbitration years in 26 and 27. So instead of going year to year, they extended the 1 year into 3. So it is technically an extension, even if it doesn't necessarily extend his time in Kansas City because it's still under team control. Regardless, I think this is a great move, both for Cole Ragans and for the Royals, for multiple reasons. One, happy for Cole. He has cost certainty. He knows what he's going to go in and make. He doesn't have to worry about going to an arbitration hearing or negotiating with the team in the offseason, trying to get the most money as they try and bring the number down, and that whole cat and mouse game. He doesn't have to worry about that. He now knows, I have my money for the next 3 years, and I'm going to go ball out, and I'm going to go and try and get that $8 million. For 2027, go win the Cy Young, and it takes some pressure off of him, especially being a guy that has 2 Tommy John surgeries, in the past. Who knows what kind of money he would get in arbitration? He probably wouldn't get 4.5 next year. He might not get 7.5. As good as he is, that sort of injury history drives the price down. And this, in the Royals case, they were like, hey, let's just go ahead and get this done. So I'm happy for Cole. This is well-deserved. It is an underpayment because I think he is better than $13 million over the next 3 years. But he has said how much he loves Kansas City and how much he loves being a Royal and wants to be here. So this builds goodwill with him. And now that brings me to the Royal side. This is a very player-friendly deal. When you think about Cole Ragans' journey to the big leagues as a first-round pick, highly regarded, to then have back-to-back Tommy John surgeries almost in consecutive years. He's a reliever. He's not really used a lot in Texas. And then he gets to Kansas City and he starts lighting the world on fire. And they found their ace out of half a season of Aroldis Chapman. They didn't have to do this. They could have just continued to go year over year. They didn't have to give any sort of security. They could have just kept going year to year, hope he doesn't hurt his arm, and then maybe in 27, then they decide to do an extension because they have some certainty with his health. Instead, they decide to do this, which tells me I believe it's a goodwill move on the side of the organization, that they wanted to do this so that he goes out there and can just pitch free, and he doesn't have to worry about the money. They don't have to worry about the money. They don't have to worry about going to a potentially contentious arbitration hearing that might sour him on the organization. That, man, they're really trying to nickel and dime me and not give me the money that I deserve for being one of the best pitchers in baseball for the last season and a half or more, if he's as good as he continues to be and as he should be over the next couple of years. So this, to me, is kind of peeking that door open to a potential long-term extension by the time this is up, or If he is awesome and a Cy Young candidate the next 2 years, this could potentially be where the Royals decide to give him that long-term deal that he deserves. And being a guy that's a little bit older by the time he got to the big leagues and really established himself, he, he'll be around 30 by the time he is into free agency. It could, he might get one contract. So if he wants to stay in Kansas City, this might be his one opportunity to really cash in. I hope that that's what they decide to do for Cole Ragans. And I hope he's here for the long haul. I believe in him as a pitcher. I've thought he's been awesome since the second he stepped on the mound in Kansas City. This is proof of that. This is belief in the organization. This is belief in, what Cole can be. And I'm excited for what he's going to do this year. A little bit of weight off his shoulders. Doesn't have to worry about some of this arbitration stuff, and can just go pitch. I think this is a massive deal for them, and a rarity, I think, more in today's game, giving a little bit more than they probably needed to build goodwill with the player and to do right by him as he heads into the prime of his career, into his money-making years, so to speak. On the other side of this break, we're going to go ahead and talk about the offense a little bit. A couple of guys that I think really could change the complexion of the lineup going into 2025 if they have the impact that I think they can. We'll hit that and some mailbag right after this.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
If you're watching this on YouTube right now and you're not subscribed, please go hit that button and hit the notification bell as well so you know when our shows go up. As I mentioned on the last episode, during the season, we'll be up 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, likely, subject to change based on the schedule, but 3 episodes a week, and I'm excited to get that to you guys. I know you guys don't want to miss that either on the audio side or on YouTube. Helps us grow our channel for both. If you guys follow, subscribe, like, whatever you need to do over there. Thank you very much in advance for that. Last week, we talked about I did like my 1.0 roster projection for opening day and spent a lot of time talking about where I think it might go, some position battles, key players and hinge points. And I spoke very highly of the rotation in the bullpen. I think they're going to be kind of the driving force for this team. And kind of flippantly, and I don't have the exact words, I went back and listened to it the other day, and I realized kind of flippantly I was pretty down on the offense. And I don't know if it's going to be good enough outside of Bobby Vinny South. And that feels like that's kind of the general sentiment that that fans have had on social media throughout the offseason, that the Royals, the offense isn't good enough. They need another bat. And I agree. I think they do. I don't think it's been for lack of trying. They gave Anthony Santander a higher AAV than he got in Toronto, but Toronto gave him the 5 years. I'm not going to blame the Royals for not going to 5 years in that case and driving that price up like Toronto did. If you're the Royals, that sort of, if the contract doesn't look good, it is a much greater error on your books than a Toronto with a really, really rich owner or a bigger market. It's kind of the reality of it. The market got out of hand for where the Royals needed to be. And so that's why they didn't get the big bat that they really went out and searched for. It just didn't work out, market circumstances, unfortunately. One of the YouTube comments, and I didn't have it pulled up. I will give them credit at some point, either on social media or whenever. They said, don't forget about Jonathan India and the impact he can have. And I had to think about it, and I was like, man, that's a really good point. Because one of the things that was a major problem for the Royals last season was the leadoff hitter. And this is not crap on Michael Garcia hour, but he did have the lowest weighted runs created plus of any qualified hitter in Major League Baseball last season. He has 69. Like, I know that's nice and funny, haha, but it was the worst in Major League Baseball for anyone that qualified for batting titles and all that stuff as an everyday player. And that's not good enough. You can't have that in your leadoff spot as a table setter. Now, Jonathan India's career weighted runs created plus is 107, and I know that might not jump off the page, but the guy gets on base. He has a huge impact on the game with his ability to just get on for the guys behind him. And when you have three really solid hitters with runners in scoring position, Bobby Witt Jr. hit nearly 390. Vinny was around 320, and I think Salvi flirted with 300. He was much better early in the year. He kind of faded down the stretch, but still very, very good situationally. You got three of those guys with a Michael Massey and maybe a Hunter Renfroe if he's able to bounce back a little bit. You got run producers. The way to produce runs is to get on base. Jonathan India provides that. And I've seen some people kind of down on that as well, and specifically that he's not as good at getting on base as people think he is. He's got a 352 career on base percentage. 357 last year was his best since his rookie year when he won Rookie of the Year at 376. Since Jonathan India has been in the majors, his career 352 on base is 35th in all of baseball out of 303 qualifiers since 2021. That's a really good guy to have at the top of your lineup. That changes so much just for a guy that's just going to get on for Bobby Witt Jr., one of the top three players in baseball. A guy that spent, of his near 700 bats, like 580 of them with no one on base. A lot of solo home runs, a lot of doubles, and that's great. You know, Bobby was amazing getting on base last year, 410 on base. That's awesome. But there was no one in front to get on in front of him for him to drive runs in. He was having to wait for Vinny and Salvi to do a lot of it, a lot of the run production. So Jonathan India changes a lot here. And if he's able to be the guy that he was, hopefully closer to his rookie year, you know, a guy at slash 269, 376, 459, 122 weighted runs created plus, it changes the offense almost entirely. Because you're not having to just rely on Bobby to save you. Because he can get on. And he'll get on, he'll walk 12.5%. He'll see some pitches. He'll drive pitch counts up. So Bobby has the opportunity to be a little more aggressive, which is kind of his MO. You know, jumping pitches early and getting on and swinging and being aggressive. It's easier to do that when you have a guy that maybe saw 6-7 pitches before you and drove the pitch count up a little bit, got on, stole second, and then Bobby can go up there and ambush a first pitch fastball, and it's 1-0 Royals just that fast. It changes a lot. I'm excited for what Jonathan India is going to be able to bring, and I do have high expectation that if they're going to trade a guy like Brady Singer that was very valuable to this organization the last few years with his durability, his ability to go out there every fifth day, they believe that Jonathan India can tap into what he was a couple years ago. And even if he is 248, 357, 392, that 357 matters a lot. And a 108 weighted runs created plus near a 3-win player. That's still a very good player. And that is a guy that will have an impact on the organization. By the way, that 108 weighted runs created plus, I know that number doesn't sound great because the 170 something that Bobby put up, Benny Pasquantino had 108 weighted runs created plus last year. Remember how impactful he was? It's not everything, but it's indicative of you're over 100, you're a pretty solid ball player. And his ability to get on base, see pitches, be a table setter, it could really change the complexion of the offense. Another guy that I think can, and I'm kind of buying back in a little bit with some of the stuff that I've read, videos I've seen. We'll see. But if MJ Melendez and his ability to adapt and adjust and change with this revamped swing that he's come into spring training with, less movement, simplified a few things. If he's able to tap into something, the talent that I know is in there. And I think that everybody, even the people that are down on MJ Melendez, I don't think you deny the talent that the ball player has. It lengthens the lineup to such a degree that it almost entirely flips the perception of the Royals offense. As I talk about, Jonathan India, defined role, get on base. Bobby Witt Jr., top 3 player in the sport. Vinny Pasquantino, one of the best run producers in the league and situational hitter. Salvador Perez, done it for a decade plus. I think Michael Massey as your 5th hitter. I think there's a breakout in there possibly if he's able to stay healthy, which is obvious, it's a big if. I understand. What he showed me in October really makes me believe that there's another gear for him to hit. Hunter Renfroe is what he is, but maybe there's something there if there's less pressure on him to produce, and he doesn't have to be this masher run producer guy, and they're going to rely on him. I don't think they have to do that. If MJ hitting 6th or 7th for you can get to league average, cut down on some of the swing and miss, he's always going to have a little bit of it, but I think the less movement with his hands and his hips and his body trying to sync everything up, I think is going to create less holes in his zone, and he'll be able to drive more balls. And even with the lack of production, he's always had a good feel for the barrel, but he's never been able to get to it because his timing has been so jacked because of the mechanics in his swing previously. He simplifies some things, and he's able to find barrel more often. He's going to produce. And if he's able to get to a league average clip with maybe more doubles than home runs, I don't know if this, we haven't seen quite yet, if he's able to optimize the fly ball and getting the ball in the air, which he has done a very good job of. That's his game, is get the ball in the air, hit the ball hard, and hit it high and far. I don't know if this produces that, but if it's close to 30 doubles and 15 to 18 homers, which I think is a possibility given the ballpark that the Royals play in and some of the other ballparks in the AL Central, it lengthens the lineup to where we're not talking as much about the black holes in the Royals lineup. And then it's just a matter of, can Michael Garcia and Kyle Isbell in the 8-9 spot just not be terrible and just be somewhat viable and just play solid defense, get on base, steal a base, do something a couple times a week? You got a pretty good lineup there with the pitching staff. The Royals are going to be able to roll out 1 through 13. You feel pretty good about that as well, that the Royals, the staff is going to keep them in the game every night. It's just a matter of the offense doing enough. And Jonathan India and MJ Melendez, who I think are the two biggest hinge points with the offense, it could change a lot. And we'll know more hopefully at the end of the week. Maybe we'll see them in some spring training stuff and give us a slight indication, but we'll know more in about a little over a month when we hit opening day, what kind of impact India and Melendez can have on this organization and on this team in 2025. Let's move on to the mailbag. And again, thank you very much to everybody that responded with questions, either on Twitter. I'll hit the KCSN Discord as well, in the Royals channel, whenever I do mailbag stuff. And I'll do this every once in a while. It's probably not going to be every week, but if it's a light news week and there's not a lot to go off of, I'll do this every once in a while. I may do a full episode that's all mailbag stuff before the season. But I got a handful here to go off of, and I think there are some good ones. KC Dave 85 on Twitter. Who could be some potential trade deadline candidate outfielders? Who could be on the Royals' radar midseason? I think the one that people are going to continue to go for is Taylor Ward, because, the Angels aren't going to be going anywhere. That's still going to be a huge part of the conversation. It was a part of the conversation last offseason. They decided to hold on to him. I'm not going to be shocked if that's where they decide to go again. Some other of the last place teams, I think there might be some conversation around Luis Robert in Chicago, but then again, I have no idea what they're going to do or if he's even healthy. Unfortunately, that's a huge part of the concern for him. I'm thinking about some other last place teams here. Maybe if you want to go to Oakland/Sacramento with the A's, but they seem to maybe be turning a corner a little bit, so I don't know how aggressive they would be selling. Maybe it's a JJ Bleday. My dream would be Lawrence Butler, but I think that might be a little too far-fetched. The Marlins, I think Jesus Sanchez may be a name that gets thrown around, but I'm not sure right now, because the teams that we're going to be looking at are teams that are going to be sellers for sure. And people thought the Royals would have been sellers this time last year, and the Royals were buyers, like aggressive buyers. So it's kind of hard to tell right now, but there are certainly going to be opportunities for the Royals to be aggressive, go and try and get somebody. One name, if they wanted to go and try, and this is a name that I kind of like a fair amount, but I don't know if the Rockies would do it. I do like Brenton Doyle quite a bit in
in Colorado. And I know that trading for a Colorado hitter is a little bit of a concern. The guy can absolutely go get it in center field. He's one of the best defensive center fielders in the league. He made some significant strides offensively last year. So that may be a name that if they start selling, that might be a name I try and go for a little more aggressively. But we'll see over the next couple. But I'd imagine Taylor Ward is probably going to be the name that gets thrown around the most out of this. Nate Templeton on Twitter, opening day bullpen predictions. I'll get this pulled back up here. I had some names. There was one name I left out, and I realized it after I did my 1.0, but I also think it was a little calculated on my part. So the bullpen that I had, John Schreiber, Daniel Lynch, Kyle Wright, Hunter Harvey, Sam Long, Angel Serpa, Carlos Estevez, and Lucas Erceg. Hernandez, Marsh, James MacArthur on the periphery. The other name to watch for is Chris Stratton. And that's where I think things get interesting. Because I don't think Chris Stratton is good enough now with the state of the bullpen to pitch a ton for this team. But they owe him like $6.5 million. I think it's around $6. I think it's $6 million. I'd imagine if he is on the opening day roster, it's in the, if you remember from the beginning of last year, the Jordan Lyles role, which was this game is out of hand, one way or the other, save our bullpen. He was kind of relegated to that last year at the end of the year before he got hurt and didn't pitch in the last couple of weeks and into the postseason. I'd imagine that's probably where they have him until he either decides that he just wants to be done or they just eat the money and DFA him, which I don't think that would be something the Royals would do. But I think there are too many good options now for the Royals to throw out there to waste a bullpen spot on a guy that you're just not sure about anymore. And that's Chris Stratton was pretty sketchy from day one, getting him out there. He had some stretches of good, some stretches of bad, but they need more certainty going out there. And I don't know if he provides that at this point there. I think there's certainly more options that provide that sort of, we know what we're going to get when he goes out there. Our good buddy Josh Kaiser on Twitter, knowing the little effect that spring training performances have on opening day roster spots, who has the most to lose with a poor spring? So this is a great question because I remember when I talked to JJ Picollo before last season, I asked him about this, how much stock do we take into spring trainings? And he said, you take some of it, but you look more at the larger sample of what you saw the previous season to make more assessments than 25 to 30 at-bats in spring training. That's not going to tell you the whole story. Even if players improve, who knows? I think Carlos Hernandez is it's probably centered around the guys that are out of options more often than not, because let me go and see which guys specifically have no options. And that might form some of this here. Nelson Velasquez, out of options. Sam Long, Carlos Hernandez are also out of options. I think Sam Long is pretty much locked in. I would imagine Carlos Hernandez falls into that. Nelson Velasquez, you have to be good. Otherwise, you're going to get DFA'd and end up somewhere else. So I think it falls more into that category than a guy just flat losing his spot, because I think it's pretty chalk as to who is in the opening day lineup, and then the bench is kind of in flux. I think Nick Lofton maybe needs a big spring because I think it'll be him and Kevin Biggio for that utility spot. On the pitching side, I think the only one might really be Carlos Hernandez, because if Kyle Wright is healthy and shows that he's healthy and that he can make it, then I think they're going to give him that spot. The sample is too big of Carlos Hernandez being inconsistent. And I think they want some certainty and consistency, and Kyle Wright at least has some consistency and some solid big league production pre-injury. That's probably the way that I would take it. Gooby35 on Discord, what bottom half of the lineup back gives you the most hope for 2025? I talked about this a little bit earlier. I do think it is MJ Melendez. That he would be the guy that that can have the most impact on this team and can handle some of the I think he's handled some of the adversity, and I think he's handled it well. This is where I think that would be the name that I would go with, that I have the highest hope for. I can't quit Michael Garcia. I think he hits the ball too hard too often to be in a position to where he's that bad again. Maybe some of the stuff that he went through this past year will, kind of help him and move on from there. But that would be the name that I would go off of specifically. Tank the Frank on Discord, is there a prospect you think makes their way onto the opening day roster that we aren't expecting right now? I don't think that's the case. The candidates for that would probably be a Tyler Gentry, but I don't know if he's necessarily still, I guess he would still be considered a prospect. But that's the only upper minors guy that I think has a legitimate chance. I'm sure that if Josh Kaiser is listening to this right now, he is screaming for John Rave like into the abyss right now. That would be a name that I'm curious about, John Rave, but not to where I think he's going to make the opening day roster. Noah Cameron maybe, but that would be more of there's a couple injuries and they just need a bye. And that's not what I'm hoping for. Obviously, I think Noah Cameron is going to see big league time this year, but I don't think it's going to be off the bat. He's going to go to AAA, get seasoned up, and then he'll end up in the big leagues at some point. I think he's too good to stay down in Omaha for too long, but I don't think it's on opening day. The rest of like the big name impact or impact adjacent prospects are in Northwest Arkansas and Quad Cities. So they're far enough away that none of them are going to make the opening day roster. Like Gavin Cross isn't going to pop out of nowhere and go straight from AA to the opening day roster. Jack Caglione is not going to light the world on fire to a degree in spring training that he skips AA almost entirely and goes right to the big leagues. That's not going to happen. So the impact guys are not there quite yet. That's not to say that there aren't going to be prospects that make the big leagues and impact the big league roster this year. I just don't think there are many that are ready to make that jump right now. He had another question as well. Tank the Frank did. Also, last year being as a success, do you think that they're positioned to repeat it this year? I do. I feel just as good that they're going to be able to do that. And Andy Hex Burner, then this goes into the next point that I do think they are ripe to be able to do that. To build on that, you have to improve on last year. So what's the mark they have to hit this year to define this year's success? It's make the playoffs. I'm not even saying that they have to. I think it's to get back to the DS for me, unless they just get a crazy draw in the wild card, because I think that's how they're going to have to make it again. They're not going to win the division. I think it's going to be Cleveland or Detroit that does. But the Royals are going to be firmly in a wild card spot again this season is how I view it. With the way that Major League Baseball is structured, with no salary cap and teams can spend however they want, and there's limitations that are created and kind of baked in for smaller market teams like Kansas City. And it's not an excuse. You got to go out and win games. And spending money doesn't guarantee you anything. It doesn't guarantee you championships, doesn't guarantee you wins, doesn't guarantee anything. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The Royals, to make the playoffs, it is a big success as a small market team, do it back-to-back years with the type of budget that the Royals have to go off of. And John Sherman is putting money into this. This is not me trying to cape for ownership. I know they can spend, but they put money in and it's correlated to wins. What a concept that is, right? They have invested in their product, which is all we want. And that leads to playoff. That leads to getting to the playoffs and winning games. When you invest in talent, you spend the money on it, you win games. That's part of it. It doesn't guarantee you championships, but it gets you into the dance. And that's all the Royals can ask for. And hey, they might get a good draw in the playoffs and make a run. I wouldn't be shocked by it. There's so much of this team returning from last year. Got a sour taste in their mouth. They got kind of blasted by the Yankees in the last game at home. They had to watch the Yankees celebrate going to the ALCS on their home field. That's going to sit with them. And, Bobby went out and watched them do it for a reason. So I think they can repeat the success they did last year. I'll talk a little more about that as I do a predictions episode before opening day. But I think getting back to the playoffs defines this year as a success. You have to get back. I don't think you can't take a step back now. Even if they arrived a year early, the expectation is now set. So this is where the Royals have to continue to go, especially with this current core that they have. They have to continue to progress, and I think they will. I think they have the right mentality. I think the organization is heading in a direction where this is the expectation and not just a fun story. Last year was, and we can coast for another 5 years. Not the case. They want to win. John Sherman wants to win. JJ wants to win, and that group in the clubhouse wants to win. So we'll see how it goes, but I feel pretty good about where they're going to be able to be set up, and we'll see where it goes. We got spring training games later this week. So we'll be able to watch some live baseball here by Friday and Saturday. I'm pretty excited about that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Be sure to like and subscribe on all platforms with audio and video. And we'll be back next week. I'm going to try and get some minor league stuff in here at some point. I'm hoping next week. If not, it'll be the week after. But we'll find some good stuff to talk about for about a half hour or so. And we'll talk to y'all then. Take care.